The galaxy burns. The heretic falls. And the Emperor protects. Welcome, Imperial citizens. My name is Doug with 2 Plus Tough, along with my best bud, Dan from Cubic Shenanigans. How you doing, man?
Hello, my dear friend.
Yeah, and today we are talking about Horus Heresy books, so you don't have to read them. This is The Emperor Protects. And that is basically what we've been doing for a little bit here. And we moved from novels to Primarch stories. We've taken some time, I think, in this season to go through some short stories because so much of the Heresy is anthologies. So we've been really enjoying this. I know I have. Dan has a surprise story for me that I don't know much about. And I have a story from a different, what is it, compendium, whatever, anthology. So I'm broadening my horizons from moving away from just the one that has to do with Chthonia.
Oh no.
His Horus is in the name of the game. Okay, I'm just saying I don't have to look too far.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're gonna jump into that. Dan, I'm gonna put you on the spot and let you know we got some positive feedback here for our episodes. Just people excited that we're recording, handling the short stories. People really enjoyed your coverage of, was it the Grey Raven? Is that what it was called?
Yes. Oh yeah.
And the last church that kind of struck a note with people. They seem to enjoy it.
Great to hear.
So whenever you are ready, I am ready to be bedazzled and bejeweled by a mystery story. So entertain me.
This is a short story called Lupus Daemonis. And my opening statement is: the utter dark of Chthonia is a most deadly place. This entire story takes place in the utter dark of Chthonia, which is what the planet is now. That is all it is. That's where all the people live in this horrid, it's worse than an underhive, right? It's just brutal. You kill or be killed. You kill them before they kill you. Anyone who did not bear the mark of your clan or your gang or your family, bloodied. They go away. In the Underdark, they say that brother kills brother, parents abandon their children, wives kill their husbands. It is just beyond brutality and beyond horrific. And that's where the story takes place. But I think the reason I'm enjoying it is because it picks one boy who's in this environment, and it talks about what his life is like. So we get this really good idea, I think, of what life must have been like for a lot of the Luna Wolves before they became Space Marines or the Sons of Horus, right? And so it's a really good perspective that way. So the story is about a young man named Nergui, and he remembers the day his adopted father was murdered. And so even though he was too young to know how the world worked, fighting and killing is what you did. Until your gun ran dry, your knife broke, your fist broke, you fight. And until your skull was smashed in or your throat was cut, then once you died, you got something called mirror coins. And we know this from a lot of cultures. I know the Irish, the Celtic culture, putting the coins on the eyes when somebody dies. So they have this here, and they're called mirror coins. So Nergui saw his adopted father murdered right in front of him. And he's laying in a pool of blood. And, Chthonia is a world at this point built on murder. And this was his first experience seeing a murder. And he is part of a clan called the Reavers. And he watched and so we go ahead a little bit, and he's watching the young men of the Reavers who they just slaughtered another clan called the Deep Brats. They carved their names into their victims. And they earn something called kill names. When they get their first actual kill, someone, a leader, in this case, his name is Kagedon, he gives each one of the warriors a kill name. So Nergui is Nergui the no name because he does not have one yet.
Right.
So that's all people call him, is no name. That's it. And as the warlord watched Kagedon, watching the carving in, they're pounding the ground, they're howling, they're making guttural noises, and somehow it was affecting Nurgle at his basis level. He wanted to join them. He
Mm,
wanted to get in there, and be blooded himself because he knew if he didn't, he'd be torn apart even by his own clan.
yeah.
Uh, and then Gegetin went over and he just decapitated the Deep Rat's warlord and just washed his face in the blood that was dripping out. It was just horrid. Again, this is the story of Chthonian, right?
Ah, childhood.
And this is what Nurgle's growing up in, man.
I love
Life
it.
is cheap, right? And he's been told his whole life that it's cheap.
Right, of
And
course.
he's survived cuts and slashes and beatings that actually would have killed other people. Um, he was a runt whose body just kind of refused to develop like
Mm,
those of his clanmates. So his once in a while he'd get a really bad cut or something and it would kind of heal up, but he had all these scars everywhere because these things didn't heal cleanly. So he's getting
yeah,
more and more scars on his body, but he's still kind of undersized for his age.
interesting.
And most of the clan considered him cursed and they wanted him dead because of these things. But Kagedin said, no, there's something about Nurgle that we have to just watch and see what happens because whatever.
Yeah.
So Kagedin had actually found Nurgle hanging on a meat hook in a rival clan's hideout. And he was about to be butchered, and Kagedin butchered the man who was going to butcher Nurgle. Um, and he wondered Nurkowicz always wondered why didn't Kagedin kill me when
Yeah.
I was just hanging there? He could have, right?
Sure.
So we find him in a cave now with a bunch of wall murals, which is cool. This is one that's just been taken from the deep rats, and it's depicting the surface of Chthonian. There are
Mm,
these tall stone buildings and metal buildings. There's stars in the sky. Nurgui just longed to see a sky full of stars. What would that look like? Instead of this oil-stained ceiling of rockcrete, which is what everything was.
hmm
It was just caves and tunnels with pipes running through them and old ironwork that had broken and was falling apart. But if you went to the surface, there was no purpose in it because the sun was so bad that it would just burn your skin right away. The air was foul.
Mm.
It would poison you. And there were stories about blue-eyed ghouls that inhabited the ruins.
Oh, that's cool.
You're like, whoa, blue-eyed ghouls. What the hell is this, right?
Fallout.
So, but of course, Nurgui, this didn't dissuade him. He
Right.
had an obsession, and with all the things he had gone through already,
hmm
he was like, "Hey, I'm going to see it." And his imagination, in his imagination, he saw oceans, plains of grass, soil, mountains, and then he looked more closely at the mural, and there was a line that went up into the stars, and it pointed towards a mountain with a single little light at the top of it. And on the mural, he saw a man, and the man spoke to him as he watched, and it said, "I know you." And
Ooh.
Nurgle's like backing off. He's going, "What the hell is going on?" His imagination just gets shattered all of a sudden. This just shocked him.
hmm
And four of the newly blooded braves that came into the cave while he was doing this, and Karamat, who was the oldest one, tells Nurgle that he will never be blooded or earn a kill name because he's not trained.
Hmm.
And none of the older braves are going to kill him. They're not going to train him, right?
Right.
And he's always going to be no name. So one of the braves, a girl named Neela, was crumpling an old book in her hands because they were in kind of a library part of a thing, and the book just crumbled. Um, Nurgle told her to stop because for some reason this knowledge being lost, it actually affected him. It was emotive to him. It saddened him.
Interesting.
Um, and then all of a sudden he instantly realizes his mistake and his mistake because the other Braves, they come over and he just rolls into a ball and they just start beating the crap out of him. Right. And he's just
Oh, because he
just
told
like,
her what to do. One of the
yeah,
yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
tell the Braves what to do because
Yep.
you're a no name, you're nothing, you're not blooded, blah blah blah. And he knew what was coming though. He's like, okay, time to roll into a ball.
Fair enough.
It's kind of like stop, drop and roll, right? When you're when you're on fire. So the beating just continues, and Karamat just goes into a blood rage. He's raining blow after blow on Nurgui. So Neela saw the danger and she grabbed Karamat's top knot and pulled him off.
Hmm.
But he turned around and impaled her on his hook blade.
Oh God.
And he finished by telling the others to throw her into the pit because underneath Chthoniya there are these crevices and there's just like fire and lava at the bottom of
Oh,
them.
like a geothermal vent kind of a
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
exactly. He just like throw her in. Uh, Nurgui took the blade because you know why? Life has no worth. That's what we talked about, and that's where we are here. It's crazy.
Hmm.
It just as you read more and more of this story, you're going, where's this going, man? This is horrible. But again, I thought it was such a great uh, story about. I mean, we really haven't gotten this kind of detail. We know about the underworld of Chthoniya, but never how just over the top brutal it was. So
Absolutely.
Geddon walks over to Nurgui after Neela dies, and Nurgui's like, I can't believe that her death didn't matter. Like there's not something larger and more important than the other dark. And Geddon says, no, nothing. No one matters. Nothing matters. We fight, we kill, we die. That's it. And he walked over and put his hand on Nurgui's shoulder. And at first, it was like a paternal gesture. You know, you walk up to a friend, put your hand on his shoulder, and you kind of say, "Hey, how are you doing today?" or something. It's a kind of a connection, right?
Hmm.
But all of a sudden, the grip was becoming tighter and tighter, and they were moving closer and closer to the edge of the pit. And Nurgui was sure that Geddon was going to push him into the pit. And then all of a sudden, this weird actinic discharge, like blue lightning stuff, sounded in the bottom of the pit, and the rocks all around them started shifting. And Geddon stopped and he let go of his Nurgui's shoulder and stepped
Hmm.
away. And Nurgui said, "Why did you back off?" And Geddon said, "Chthoniya spoke to me."
Mm.
You're like, whoa, what? Wow.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So then what happens? We're given a description of what's left beneath Tithonia. It's dark, it's bleak, it's miserable.
Hmm.
There's only fading lumens everywhere. There was once this huge abundance of mineral resources on the planet, but they've
Yep.
been completely tapped out,
Hmm.
right? And there's only one resource that remains in abundance, and that's people.
Yep.
And Nurgui's like, so if that's all there is, what purpose do they serve? Because they're just killing and being killed, and it's horrific.
Hmm.
So he walks through the halls, follows the lights, um, making sure he doesn't stumble into the camp of a rival tribe because that would mean instant death.
Of course.
Um, and he knew he was going in the right direction. His instincts told him that he needed to go up. For some reason, he was being driven to
Mm.
go in that direction. So he was climbing over ladders and pipes and iron lattices, always again avoiding rival tribes, which were all the tribes on the planet except his own,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everybody's an
And they
enemy.
weren't even very friendly.
And Chthonian children learned early how to navigate this labyrinth, because otherwise they died a very slow death of, starvation and
Hmm.
dehydration, and they would just be lost in this madness of old Detrius. Um, so he kept climbing and he kept climbing. And finally, he saw some moonlight through the roof of this huge chamber that he was in, he had gone into. And he realized, you'll like this, he realized it was the trophy cavern of the Gestarin.
Oh.
Hundreds of bodies were impaled on stalagmites, and they were just frozen there in like lingering agony. The mineral water was just dropping off the ceiling, and
Hmm.
it would hit these bodies that couldn't move, and it would just start coating them in and then it would harden, and it was just, oh, it was horrific, just
That's
horrific.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the Gesterians, and I'm assuming these are the ancestors of the Gesterians, your guys,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So anyway, um,
Well, yeah.
yeah, and one of the victims actually was still alive though, and Nurgle walked over and he said, "Give me a knife, please." He was begging, "Give me a knife so I can die with a weapon in my hand." And Nurgle was like, "What? What?" And so he said, "No." And he just walked over and he slit the man's throat and watched it bleed out. And he thought, he goes, "Well, that was a waste. I thought it could be blooded, but that's not going to blood because I have to actually kill a man in combat." But he didn't think of
Fair
it
enough.
like as a waste. At first, that was his reaction. If I kill this guy, I'm going to be blooded. And then he realized, oh no,
Yeah.
that's okay.
It's rules as written, but not rules as intended. Yeah.
It's exactly right. And so, um, but he thought, hey, this is good prep for when he actually did it. This is how he's become so twisted, just like his
Hero's
environment.
journey. Yeah.
Yeah. So he goes past the Justarin trophy cave and he finds an old spiral staircase that leads to the surface. That's all cluttered with debris and broken ironwood and ironwork and stuff. But he gets close to the top, and all of a sudden the temperature, first of all, starts to increase significantly.
Hmm.
And he could taste the metal and other foul things in the air as he's getting closer. And then he came to a ladder that went up through a metal shaft, and at the top was this bent steel plate, and there was blue light like seeping in around the edges. So he pushed and he pushed and he pushed on this steel plate just enough so he could squeeze through. And all of a sudden, he was on the surface of Chthoniya.
Hmm.
And he realized he was in a broken vehicle hangar. Concrete floors, big sheet metal walls on three sides.
Hmm.
And out of the open side, he saw this just ravaged surface of the planet.
Hmm.
Just uh, wrecked mining equipment, gigantic mining equipment was everywhere. And he saw ruined rail tracks and ruins of a city, and everywhere was just devastation, right?
Hmm.
But what was weird was he perceived that this was not conflict, this was abandonment,
Hmm.
that somebody just got what they needed and they just left everything to rot and they're
Right.
gone, right? So he kind of is adjusting to his new surroundings now, and he heard a sound that was artificial. It wasn't something he expected.
Okay.
So he moved very stealthily towards the sound, and he used all his little Underdark skills to remain undetected. He came to a point where he could look into a huge crater,
Hmm.
and at the bottom he saw a starship, a squat starship, like on legs, sitting up.
Oh, okay.
There was a group of figures that was working to remove something from a pit that had been dug underneath. And the figures he saw, they were mostly grayed skin and they had all these metal parts grafted to their bodies.
Love
He
it.
saw a couple of people that looked kind of like overseers. They were wearing these big red robes. He saw um, these bipedal walkers that were kind of patrolling the periphery, and they had, you know, targeting lights kind of going everywhere, searching for stuff.
Mm.
There were black servo skulls just flying all over the place. He was just overwhelmed. He didn't know where to go or what to do. He was kind of stunned for a minute. But then he was looking at this thing that they had pulled out, and it was kind of like cylindrical in shape but long, and he saw thunderbolts on the side. And somehow he had this flash of recognition. He didn't know why.
Hmm.
He saw it and it was, why should I know this? And the people he saw were actually treating it as if it was some kind of a relic or something. And he was just fixed on it. He couldn't look away. He just kept looking for all these little details. And then he heard the crunch of gravel behind him.
Oh.
And all of a sudden he saw a hooded figure with glowing blue eyes and a long rifle pointed at him, which we would recognize today as like a Skitarii Ranger,
Yep.
right? So the figure started firing at him. But Nurgui, of course, having been from the Underdark, he was fast, he was nimble, he was avoiding the shots. Um, And his natural reaction, once he kind of dodged the bullets and he got his head put together, his instincts of living in the underdog for so long was to pull out his knife and attack this big metal man that was standing there. And he did. And the metal man got a couple shots into him. He didn't even feel the pain. He just kept going. And he took this knife and he stabbed it into one of the flex seals underneath the guy's arm. And he just started
Nice.
rubbing it around everywhere. And he could feel the organs and the sinews tearing and stuff. There was oily black blood gushing out. And uh, so Nurgui heard one of the walkers coming. He grabbed the guy's rifle and he stood his ground. At first he was going to run. He's like, no, you know what? I'm not going to run. I have no place to go
Right.
because two of these walkers actually had their targeting lights on him. They were spotting. Lasers were there. In between the two of them, there was one of these robed figures. I would assume it'd be like a tech priest, right?
Hmm.
He stood between these two walkers. And Nurgui picked up the gun, took it to his face, fired again and again and again at this figure, and every one of the shots just kind of dispersed
Right.
off of this guy. He has some kind of a field, obviously, a shield.
2 up invuln with every roll.
Yeah, too.
Yep.
Exactly. And he just kept pulling the trigger until there was nothing left. The weapon ran dry. So he pulled out his knife, and you know, he's thinking you fight until your knife breaks and you're dead.
Yep.
And he pulled out his 2 mirror coins and he hung them around his neck. And he said that he's screaming at these guys, when I die, put these into my eyes. These are the ones that Kurgeddon had taken from his adopted father, by the way.
Oh wow. Okay.
So as he shows them to the priest and the walkers, the priest motions and both of the walkers pull back. The priest looks at Nurgui and he kind of gestures with his hand to come over here, come over to me, come over here. And Nurgu, he's just like totally confused. He has no idea what the hell is going on.
This is a cool
And
way to die.
now he runs. Now he runs. So he gets back to his tribe. He shows this amazing rifle to Kagen. And as Kagen looks at the weapon, he he understands that Nurgui's killed one of those blue-eyed ghouls.
Yep.
He asked how he did it. And as Nurgui is telling him, he goes, oh my God, you screwed up so bad now, man. Do you realize that they're going to come for you now? And Nurgly's like, he's thinking, I'm like 100 feet underground or 200 feet underground. Like, you're not going to come for me, right?
Auspex.
And, but Nurgly, you know, he was hoping that Kurgeddon was going to give him a kill name because he killed one of these things, right?
Right.
But all he did was backhand him, knocking him to the ground. And for some reason, this time, Doug was different than it had ever been. He had finally blooded an enemy and it had awakened something inside of him, and he was not cowed anymore by Kurgeddon.
Hmm.
And all the while this is happening, the cave's starting to shake more and more. Stuff's falling from the ceilings, and Nurgui stood there, and for the first time he saw Kurgeddon for what he was. He wasn't a warlord who was going to break the chains and lead the tribes. He was a petty tyrant.
Yep.
And he was not worthy of devotion. And Kurgeddon saw that change in Nurgui. The way he stood tall and no longer someone that would just survive. And he looked at Nurgui and said, it is time.
Ooh.
Nurgui took out his knife. He walked over to him and he shoved the knife under his rib cage and into his heart and twisted it, and the blood's gushing out. And just as this is happening, this huge drill head breaks through the wall of the cave, right? And Nurgui and Kurgeddon dropped to the floor together, and Kurgeddon's head fell onto Nurgui's shoulder. And he says, I give you your kill name. And he whispered a single name. So he was no longer Nurgui the no name. He had his kill name, finally, after all these years and all this time. So the cave collapses around him and his tribe is dying. All these boulders and stones and stuff are coming down. But for some reason, he finally knew who he was. He was getting these flashes of the galaxy, and he was actually seeing uh, flashes of war-torn Terra. He saw a golden lord on a throne
Hmm.
sitting on top of a tower of stone. And the Lord looked at the sky and he smiled and he said, "It is time." So those three simple words, all of a sudden, this wave of emotions pours over our hero. Quote, I can't call him Nergal anymore because he's not.
Uh-huh.
Right? And these long dormant genes that are inside him, his anatomy just totally begins to be rewritten. There's this antagonizing apotheosis
Hmm.
that's just ripping his body apart and reforming him. Um, and as this is happening, he finally comes back into the cavern. And the rocks and the debris are smashing into him. Doesn't even feel it. Doesn't matter because he knows who he is now. And he heard galvanic weapons firing. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden he thought to himself, he goes, "How do I know what that is?
Right.
What's a galvanic weapon? Why did that even come into my head?" Right. And suddenly a red robed figure with burning blue eyes and a rifle stood over him again. And he touched a communications device and said, "I have the boy." His hand shot out and grabbed the figure around the neck and crushed his spine, said, "My name is Horus."
Ah, I love it. Man, that's epic. Wait, so Horus didn't have a meteoric growth like the other Primarchs. He was a kid for a little while.
Yeah, yeah, for this whole time until this moment, this apotheosis moment. I
Interesting.
mean, the great thing to me, and I'm sure you appreciate this too, but
Yeah.
we've never really had a Horus origin story
No,
like
no.
this.
Even if this is like myth, that's just an interesting myth. But yeah.
It's fascinating. Yeah,
Hmm.
my name is Horus.
That is rad. I'm trying to imagine. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he would have seen Chthonia at its absolute worst, right? Just fully mined
Mm-hmm.
out of existence. It's worse than a
Mm-hmm.
hive city because at least hive cities have something. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
producing something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, brutal. You know, they mentioned that coins over the eyes thing in one of the stories I'd already talked about when one of the warriors um dies, he puts coins over the other person's eyes. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. I love it.
Good.
Well,
Good.
thank
Good.
you. And what was that called again?
It was called what is it? A Lupus Daemonis.
Daemonis.
Yeah. I think the book was Blood of the Emperor. The anthology was called Blood of the Emperor, and each one of the stories is about a Primarch
Oh, okay.
at some point in their lives.
That
So,
is crazy. I love it. Thank you for sharing and for hiding it
yeah,
as a secret.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because the whole time I was like, well, it could be a Baden, but I don't know. And then when you said like he was having all these like immediate recognition things, I was like, oh no, it's got to be a Primarch. If his Wi-Fi signal's tuned to the Emperor, he's a Primarch.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought, to you, something you said earlier, like, a lot of these Primarchs had a different kind of apotheosis.
Yes.
This was one where usually the emperor comes to them. The emperor finds them and brings them back, to
Hmm.
wherever they are. He found a lot of the Primarchs. He actually went out himself. In this case, he just uses his incredible psychic power and reaches over the length of a galaxy and just talks to Horus that way
Yeah.
through this vision. And you go, wow, man, that is crazy.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
he was. I mean, barring possible stories about Alfarius landing on Earth originally,
mhm.
he was the closest of them, I think, because he was the first found.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, no. I mean, interesting. I love it.
So,
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing my story today. I have Lost Sons by
ooh.
James Swallow.
Oh, good.
And I chose this one over a few others because it ties together a few of the books that we've covered already in a really interesting way. And
Mm.
so this is a first person perspective from the perspective of Warden Arkad. He is the regent of Baal or Baal. Um, and the kind of the timeline of this is a little bit murky because it spans a little bit of time. We start pre-heresy, like right before everything goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the great War Master, beloved by all, favored son, bestest boy, has ordered his brother Sanguinius to go out um, to what is it, the Cygnus cluster, and
Okay.
take care of some problems over there. He says, "Hey,
Uh,
it's going to be a heck of a fight. I want you to call in as much of your legion as possible. Send every I don't know every servitor to Space Marine, wherever you got, throw it there." And so the addendum to that was, well, we have to leave a token force on Ball just to at least have some Blood Angel presence. And Sanguinius decides to leave 20 Space Marines, along with a few ships that have oaths to the Blood Angels.
okay.
And so this is a token force that is meant to just literally sit on Ball and just babysit all of the technology, the warehouses, all the stores of stuff for the Blood Angels whenever they get back. And the story is interesting from our perspective here. Warden Arkad is a chaplain. She has the skull helm and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when he hears that the entire legion is going to war as one, his whole like body bursts with like, I am so excited. Everyone is so excited. And then when Sanguinius comes and talks to him personally, he knows it's terrible news because Sanguinius personally asks him to stay.
Ah, God.
So he's like, it was the best and worst day of my life. Right? You meet the Primarch finally, and then he gives you the worst task ever. Um, so
It's
I know, I
it's
know.
horrible, man.
Um, so at this point, the fleet goes off to the Cygnus cluster, and pretty soon afterwards, they started having a whole bunch of warp problems in terms of like sending messages. They had a few reinforcement ships with ammunition and stuff that were headed that way to help them out, just to offload supplies. They went
Mm-hmm.
missing, and it becomes clear pretty quickly that like what we know as readers as the Ruin Storm, which is the book that is touching on as well,
Mm.
um, is essentially a giant trap for the Blood Angels. The entire legion was sent there by Horus pre-war. Then the heresy was revealed, and his way of dealing with his brothers is to either stab them in the back on Istvan. He has the Ultramarines locked out on Calth. There was supposed to be a Ruin Storm shutting that off. And
Mm-hmm.
then the Blood Angels did the exact same thing in the Cygnus cluster. We covered the book Ruin Storm. It was one of our favorites because it has some of the most metal scenes ever of like
Yes. Yes.
war and blood angels, and they're all losing their minds, and lots of themes of sacrifice. Really crazy stuff. So that whole thing is going on, but on the outside, they have no idea. They just see a black hole where all communication and attempts to reach them ends.
Yes.
Um, as our story progresses, and it almost kind of feels like recounting a diary almost, or a journal or something like that. So we get that order of, you're going to stay on Ball, and it's a heavy task, but they love it, or they honor it rather.
Yeah.
At a certain point, he recalls, our main character Arkad recalls standing on the bridge of his ship, just doing like a routine survey of the defenses, when
Mm.
they received word of what was going on in the galaxy. That like this burst of information of Horus has betrayed us, and everyone scrambling to figure out where everybody actually is because Horus was the only one who really knew.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so this becomes immediately scary because the entire army is out, and all of the weapons and armors and artifacts of the Blood Angels are sitting here with 20 dudes to guard them. Like, it is one maxed out squad of tactical Marines with, or I should say, 19 Marines and one chaplain attached, so, so you can fit in a Land Raider. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just these dudes hanging out, and the mood is interesting, and actually the reason I chose to cover this story It was actually, I was telling Dan before, I was at a Horus Heresy game day here locally, and one of the people there asked about the new Black Shield rules that GW just released.
Oh yeah, yeah,
If you
yeah.
don't know, Black Shields are sort of like a independent war band of Space Marines in the Horus Heresy. For a long time, it was like if you were from a traitor faction and you were loyal to the Emperor, you could discard your colors, come over, and then have like I guess,
Hmm.
a non-legion to join to go fight and kind of recoup your honor. And it's kind of expanded to now being both loyalist and traitor, for sure. In the rules wise, it's very clear about that. And he was asking, what does a traitor Black Shields group look like? And as I was reading
Oh.
this story, this is actually a pivotal moment. So one of the other Marines who's with there, his name is Brother Nagal, I believe it's pronounced. Um, he, upon hearing that war has consumed the entire galaxy and that the entire Blood Angels Legion is in the Cygnus cluster with no communication, he wants to take these 20 Marines and go try to find Sanguinius. Um, and so my point in bringing up the Black Shield stuff is this is what a loyalist Black Shield army would look like: is someone who's
Hmm.
just like, I don't care about your orders, because he's in direct conflict of the Primarch himself, who
Hmm.
told him to stay. So you have this like rejection of order and doing what you want. This is, I wanted to bring that up because this is actually a perfect snapshot of what this looks like. So war were declared, so to speak. This guy Nagal wants to leave. The warden manages to basically subdue him, and not like subdue him physically, but like talk him into staying, where he's just like, you're gonna look in Sanguinius's eye and tell him that you defied his order. Even if you save him, you're done. Like, just
Yeah, all right.
trying to
Yeah,
talk some reason.
sure.
um he doesn't need a savior, he needs someone to do what he says. So like, really good
Hmm.
stuff. So as our story continues, this kind of quelling was put down, and upon another inspection of the bulwarks and stuff, again, it's very monotonous, very routine, very boring.
Mm.
They get alert that a small fleet is coming into the system at like, they're booking it. I mean, they're like up to the door. So everyone's kind of like,
Mm.
are we at war right now? Like, is this happening? Defenses are going up, alarms are going off.
Yeah, yeah.
um Arcad is brought basically to like the war room, and he's told that, well, we're not going to start shooting yet. He actually has the codes that belong to Malkador the Sigillite, and they check out. So
Oh.
if it's a traitor, they're at least a really good one, right?
Yeah.
Which
Alpha Legion
yes,
good, yeah.
exactly. That was my first thought of like, how good do you have to be, really? um anyway, so they're like, okay, we'll chill. So it's a few transport frigates and one small like envoy craft with the whoever is leading this party in there. The envoy craft comes down, and out walks a character that is Tylos Rubio.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Now, pause in our
Oh,
story for those
Rubia.
of you who don't know, from another book that we covered, called No Fear, which is one of my favorite of the Horus Heresy books. This is from the betrayal on Calth with the Ultramarines, where they got tied, like I said, in the same trap of being pulled away from anywhere that matters and then locked down, just like the Blood Angels. In the events of Calth, um, Tylos Rubio was a former librarian, um, who sensed that something was going on. Like the whole time the word bearers were doing this whole trap thing, all of the former psychers of the Ultramarines were like racked with fatigue and headaches and visions and like nightmare,
Mm.
all this weird stuff. Because they all saw it coming. It was not subtle, like in terms of like the vibe. Um, but the massacre at Calth happens. Um, Rubio was on one of the few ships that was able to make it out of the system.
Hmm.
But in doing so, he used his psychic powers to save his brothers. Now, this is after the Council of Nicaea,
Ugh.
but before, or actually, it's oddly enough, it's kind of almost at the same time, but before it's become known that Reboot Gilliman has rescinded the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah.
So he is this weird point where every single Ultramarine looks at Rubio and shuns him. So he is essentially outcast from his own legion. They won't be associated with him. Nobody wants to fight with him. There is no librarian for him to go join instead. He's done. So he saves a whole bunch of his brothers, but he is essentially outcast himself. And he gets picked up by your boy, Nathaniel Garrow.
Oh, yeah.
Who essentially, seeing that this dynamic has just happened, makes him swear an oath of the moment, and he becomes one of the founding members of the Grey Knights, Tylos Rubio. So, this is the dude who just walks onto Ball, the first representative from anybody outside the galaxy. Yeah. So like everyone's kind of like in a pretty dour mood. I mean, they don't know who he is, but like when I hear that, I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. That's the guy you don't want.
And as you're saying this makes sense to me that he would have Malcador stuff, because the Knights Errant, who are these Grey Knights, they are contract workers for Malcador.
Yes.
They're his mercenaries, personally, his mercenaries. So yeah, that makes sense now.
Absolutely. And he brings that up pretty quickly. Like our Warden Arcad immediately was like looking at him because he has a full set of gray armor on. There's no iconography. I mean, I think there's maybe the mark of the sigillite or something like that on his shoulder, but it wasn't the normal Legion logo. And they were like, oh, and he's wearing a psychic hood. That was the big thing. So Arcad in this part he's from a different Legion. It doesn't matter if Reboot Gilliman says anything about the council. He's waiting for Sanguinius. So like seeing the psychic hood, he immediately like puts his bolter out. Like there is not good. And essentially Tylos Rubio comes in and addresses himself, kind of talks everybody down. It's cool. He seems very respectful, but he hands Warden Arcad a black tube, essentially. And this is essentially one of those like sealed scroll things. Arcad pops it open, pulls it out, and starts reading the orders that are within. And the orders are as such. We have lost contact with Sanguinius. He is now presumed dead in the horror of the Ruin Storm, because nothing seems to be coming or going. The Imperium, outside of Ball, has been sending a ton of surveyors and fleets to try and reinforce him. They've all died horrible deaths, so he's assumed dead. Because of that, all of the assets of the Blood Angels are to be liquidated and then spread around to the other loyalist legions, because there's no reason for 20 men to have a legion's worth of armory. And this edict comes straight from the desk of Malcador, and it says in no uncertain terms, the Blood Angels are disbanded. And wow. It is not received well. These 20 guys who have already sort of been facing their own personal like pull towards heresy in the sense of disobeying your Primarch, and walking out in the open in the middle of a civil war. So you have this going on, and then they're being told that they don't exist anymore. And they one of them even like makes a claim of like, I don't know, I swear on the Blood Angels, and then Rubio's is like, there are no Blood Angels. Like, just looks at him and like, whoa. I don't know. It's just really cool exchanges.
That's great. That's great.
And Rubio is very, he's delivering obviously the worst news possible, but he's very understanding. Like he knows this is not what anybody wants to hear. This is not going to go well. He lets the Blood Angels go off and have their own little council. So it's 20 guys in this giant auditorium that used to hold thousands of them. And they're just trying to discuss what to do. Nagal is like, if you had just let me leave with the fleets or whatever, we wouldn't be in this position. We would have been halfway to Sanguinius right now. And Arcad's like, well, that was never an option. And to be fair, no one saw this coming. So the scene kind of ends with Rubio interrupting their meeting and trying to make a case for why this is important. And basically says it is not just a matter of your legion. In a medical procedure, a doctor will amputate a wound to better treat
Mm,
the rest of
mm,
the whole.
mm.
Whatever Horus did has created an infection so bad that the Imperium needs to amputate things to make the whole bigger, or better rather. And so essentially saying these assets are not going to be redistributed to other legions necessarily.
Mm.
These are being seized by Malkador, because Malkador is the one who's fighting the greater problem, which is whatever pact Chaos has with Horus is now running rampant across the galaxy. Um, and we would know this. They just see it as they're being dissolved, but we would know this as, oh, okay, this is how the Grey Knights got their first tanks, their first
Oh yeah,
whatever. You know what I mean? All that
sure,
stuff.
sure.
Because it's not just military stuff; it's also like the gene crafting and all of the stuff to make a space marine.
Hmm.
And so, um, the Blood Angels at this point are like irate. They basically throw him out of the room, and Tyler Rubio goes back to his ship and just kind of waits to hear back. The next morning, Warden Arcad is walking up. He's got his skull helm clicked into place. He's got his Cruzios on his hip, and he walks up to um, Rubio and says, listen, love that you came here. Um, this is the worst thing you could have done to us. Basically, in no uncertain, like, you have put us in the worst position. Rubio sympathizes and essentially at this point offers him and his 20 guys a place in these founding of Grey Knights, or whatever, at this point
Right.
they're calling the order.
Yeah.
Um, because there's just a whole group of Space Marines. There's tens of thousands of them that, for whatever reason, the war has left them bereft of an identity or a legion, but they still have value. And so that's kind of his I guess counterpoint. Rubio's crux of his thing is like, this is just stuff. Like, you guys have value. You can give your life serving the Emperor. You can go to a different legion. You can go off on your own. You can do whatever you want. But this stuff belongs to him. Um, and so after this discussion, and they both seem to have a deep respect for one another. Like, they're not about to kill one another necessarily. After this discussion, Arcad says, "Well, we made our decision. We're not going. We're just not going. We're going to take some stuff, and we've decided. Me and Nagal, the 20 of us, are going to go off and we're going to find our Primarch, or we're going to die trying. Or if we find him dead, then we're going to turn and we're going to go look for Horus." And Rubio's like, 20 guys. You're going to take 20 guys and you're going to go hunt Horus. Like, you're going to go into the jaws of hell, and then if you happen to leave, go hunt Horus. Really,
Mm-hmm.
basically pleading with him to stop. And when it becomes clear that Arcad is like very firm, we're not doing this. Rubio's not going to kill him. There's no reason to. They're going to kill
Right.
themselves.
Yeah.
So Rubio hands over a Vox communicator to Arcad and says, "I need you to tell the remaining naval fleet in the sky that they now work for the Sigillite. That they're basically being co-opted by the rest of the Imperium," because he was kind of keeping it quiet. But this exact same discussion of, "You're no longer Blood Angels, you work for us now," is actually going on up in the sky, like
Uh,
amongst all the captains. And they're like, "No, we signed an oath to the Blood Angels that this fleet serves them." And Rubio's men are like, "There are no Blood Angels, bro." Like, it's, so they're
sure.
having the exact same argument, and it's coming to the point where they're about to start killing each other in these ships. And so Rubio's like, "I need you to give an order that even if you are not going to follow me, at least have your, the assets stand down. There's no reason this has to be a mini civil war among loyalists." Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and Arcad's like, "No, anyone who wants to fight for Sanguinius has a right to do so, and if they feel so compelled, they can. I'll let anyone who doesn't want to, jump ship. That's cool. But like, I refuse to force anybody to abandon the Primarch," is essentially his angle, which is understandable. Um, and again, these two are having a really good but tense discussion But then when the other 19 Space Marines, led by Nagal, show up, it escalates. Because they show up and they're like, why in the hell are we going to listen to you? You don't even have a legion. You're nobody. You don't actually work for any of the Primarchs. You gave up your colors. And you're wearing a psychic hood, which last we heard was very much against the rules. Right? And so it starts escalating a little bit. All of a sudden, the bolters start getting in the hand. Rubio, he lights up his power sword, rather, and his psychic hood kind of starts glowing, and everybody starts pointing the swords at one another, like, you're coming with me. And Rubio's like, no. I'm at least going to take all your stuff. I don't know how many of you I can kill, but I can promise I'll take your stuff.
Yeah.
And they go to swing at one another, Arcad and Rubio, and right before their blades touch, both of them pause because they simultaneously hear someone screaming from the main administratum building that they're in front of.
Oh.
And they both, because again, nobody wants to fight. It's just no one's willing to budge. And they see an old man coming, running at him at full speed. And this ends up being Sir Jesper, the Master of Speakers. He is just an old man. He is the head astropath. And as he's running towards him, Arcad is kind of assessing his situation of like, what news could be so important that interrupts this fight? This fight where we are about to do the biggest fight of Ball's history among 21 dudes. And he also is noticing that this old man, like, he has blood all around his eyes and ears. So whatever he was doing in his astropathic message, he came out of that decompression like way too fast. He functionally killed himself to get this message, is what Arcad's observing. So like whatever it was so important that this dude sacrificed his life to deliver it. So the old man gets to where the fighters are and says, basically, he plunged himself further into the warp than he ever has before, guiding his mind towards the ruin storm. And for the briefest moment, he made a connection with Raldoron. Now, Raldoron is the first captain of the Blood Angels. So in that, he's able to discern that it's actually Raldoron. There's some kind of code communicated that lets them know that it's him. And Raldoron essentially gives a minor recap of the events of the book Ruin Storm. That like we were almost broken, it all fell apart, but we are alive. Sanguinius is alive, and we found a way to make part of the Ruin Storm dissipate. Kind of like just letting us know, like, we're coming. We're trying. And so the senior astropath delivers this message to everybody, and after verifying it with Rubio, Warden Arcad looks at him and basically says, looks like the Blood Angels do exist. I want you to get in your ship and get the hell out of my system, because you are not welcome here. And it was very like intensely said, like it was still a threat. But Rubio essentially just puts his hands up and is like, this is the biggest and best disappointment I've ever had in my life. Meaning, I'm glad I can't fill my orders. I'm glad Sanguinius is alive. Oh my God. Again, I'm not your enemy. And so
sure.
And from there, that's kind of where the scene ends. It ends with Raldoron's message, basically being like, we're coming home, praise the Emperor, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So and that is again Lost Sons by James Swallow from Lupercal's War. And I loved it because it perfectly tied together a few of the books we had, rather with No Fear and Rubio. And I don't know, I thought it was so good. And there's a snapshot of loyalist Marines who really were about to go rogue, but for all the right reasons unto them, which I love.
Right.
Because I mean, so many of these games, like you think 40k games with Space Marines, like, okay, training drills, and it's like, no, man, like these guys are real serious.
Oh yeah. They're gonna kill each other.
Yes. Yeah, they were gonna kill each other. Your legion's gone, and their argument was like, well, as long as one Blood Angel exists, we can rebuild. And Rubio's like, yeah, if you had a millennia, but you don't. we're at war now. Like, no.
That's so cool. I love when the Knights Errant just pop up like that. And Rubio's one of my favorites. So that
Yeah.
is so cool.
Well, and also, I mean, it was kind of like thrown off as a line very briefly, but like this idea of Malkador is just not always right. And
Oh no.
you know, it's just really hard when we're having this discussion about psychers, and then the messenger is a psyker who they were told aren't allowed to be anything on behalf of a psyker, um, to do all this stuff. It's just like, man, to be
Wrong,
wrong in that moment does not look good for you guys.
wrong messenger, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe you should have sent Garrow or somebody else who wasn't a psyker. Maybe they would have responded differently, you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's good though. Great story. That
But
is good.
I thought it was really wonderful. So, yes, go give that one a listen or a read. I thought it was awesome. So, those are our two stories, my friends. We have one from the foundings of the Sons of Horus / Luna Wolves and the Lost Sons from Blood Angels. I was actually having a discussion with someone today, and they asked if I was to start over Horus Heresy, what army would I do? And Blood Angels, without question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm into it. I have come full
Yeah.
circle. Ruin Storm was one of the best, and stories like these where I don't know. I don't really like the 40k Blood Angels where they're I feel a little bit too heavy handed with the blood and the Black Rage and the I don't know, some of the more Catholic-y themes. Whereas the 30k Blood Angels I feel like are much more warlike, and they're just I don't know. They seem very. I could see why they thought they could trick them into falling for corn.
Oh, sure,
You
sure.
know, there's a lot more fun grayness there, I think. So,
Cool.
well, that is it for me. And do you have any other final topics
Well,
here we want to tack on the end?
I was just gonna say, I
Yeah.
think um the the book that you and I covered was Fear to Tread, because that's the one where Sanguinius was up against the demon and he almost died, right?
Oh, maybe that was it.
Yeah, I just wanted for listeners, just if they, wanted to see it, I had to look it up because I know No Fear is the one you mentioned with Calth.
Yes.
That's the one, but and I couldn't figure out the title to the one where Sanguinius um had his where the thing happened that the Legion went mad, but his Fear to Tread when he was fighting that demon prince. Uh, yeah, so yeah, Fear to Tread. The Rune
Oh,
Storm, I
yes. You're
think,
right. That's a different one. That's what the
yeah,
Primarch's trying to get back to
yeah,
Terra. I apologize,
but
everybody.
no, that's a great book too, because it is like it incorporates, I think, three different legions, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
And it's great because it's got Sanguinius in it. It's got uh Gilliman, and I can't remember what the third legion, what it might have been.
Dark Angels, I
Yeah,
think, is what it says
Dark
here
Angels,
on.
maybe, yeah, maybe so. Um, but anyway, I just in case people were going to read the books or anything, just to do that. So that's great
Yeah.
though. That I love the fact you picked the story. First of all, if it's James Swallow, it's probably going to be about Knights Errant.
Oh, was that kind of his baby?
Well, yeah, because he did all the Garrow books,
Oh, nice.
all the Garrow stories, and yeah, so very cool. That's great, man. Good choice. Good choice.
Sweet. Okay, friends. Well, we'll go ahead and hang it up there for this week. Thank you all so much
Yes.
for listening. If you have recommendations for us you'd like us to consider, please leave them on my comments here on YouTube, on Podbean, or over on Cubic Shenanigans. I'm
Mm,
sure Dan would love to field them for you. So
sure.
we'll
Sure,
do
sure.
that. And I think we got some holiday seasons coming up. Dan and I are planning a escalation game day for some Horus Heresy,
Yes.
where we play like we did it before with Conquest. We played 3 games, and each one was a different point size. So it's good. You know, you kind of groggy in the morning, kind of getting rolling, and then
Yeah,
knock them out pretty quick.
that's it. Sure. Sure,
But we
sure.
had an absolute blast, and so I'm looking forward to that. Let us know how you feel about things, and we will follow up with you. Until then, thank you so much for listening, and may the Emperor protect.